When you looked at the film, Coach?
Well, that's what majority of everybody saw. You know, the missed tackles were glaring. So we went out on Tuesday and we addressed it. We did a whole bunch of live work, and you know, and our kids responded really well to it. You know, there's technical things, there are angle things, but things that, like any fundamental or technique, we're going to rep the heck out of it until it gets resolved. I did see, you know, flashes at times. I like the spurts that we had, especially, you know, second quarter, third quarter. I thought we stepped up. There was a little bit of a short field where that game could have got a little bit out of control, but I didn't like what we did in the fourth quarter when it was on the line. You know, those critical series towards the tail end, our offense was clawing back, made a couple plays, got the game tight. I think it was like a 2017 game. And, you know what, we give up a touchdown, we're a tackling issue. And then later on, we give up 2 explosive runs and then get them down to the goal line and can't finish them off on the third down play. So those things, you know, you can't beat a team, a top 5 team like that. You've got to be able to finish those things off. But the third down was good. You know, that was something that we had struggled with. And then had a couple opportunities to get a couple more turnovers. That, you know, the one that Jalen put behind his back, you know, we were really close to that. And Deshaun had a chance to catch one in the corner of the end zone, just couldn't finish it. So we get a couple of those plays. Not that it's going to win the game necessarily, but it's going to change the momentum.
Todd, you know where you guys are statistically.
Yeah.
Won't hit you with that, but just what bothers you the most about the first 6 games?
Well, it's explosive plays. You know, those are part of it. You know, and just me personally is just, you know, when we have opportunities to make plays, just finishing plays.
Yeah.
You know, that to me is a big part of just confidence, you know, playmakers, those type of things. And like I said before, and there's the shuffling of the deck, and, you know, with some of the injuries, and it's not an excuse, but, you know, you get into the point where some of these guys are moving around and doing quite a bit, and we'll end up doing the same thing this week. And you know, and just stabilizing things. That's what the biggest thing that we have to do, is just stabilize the guys in their positions and go play fast.
I mean, several of the veteran guys, like Brandon especially, he's pointed this out twice. He just thinks that maybe it's because the guys are young and they're unsure of themselves. And I mean, you talked about that earlier.
Yeah, well, I think it's.
Is that a thing?
I think anytime that you have younger guys in there, I think it's always an experience to figure out, you know, what's going through that brain. I think where we can help is, you know, and we've started to do this, is start to simplify and start to give them opportunities to stop thinking. But I think any type of young guy, you know, there is a small amount of clutter because, you know, you go into that type of game with Oklahoma. Maybe that's, for us, that's plenty of times we've been there, but for that guy coming in for his first start, you know, that haven't done it, you know, maybe it's a little bit different. So, you know, we deal with that from a kind of an individual basis, and we just watch the film and practice to figure out what guys can handle.
From your expertise, what leads or has been leading to the missed tackles? Is it guys trying to make the big hits? Is it like a fundamental thing?
Yeah, it's a fundamental and technique thing. You know, there's guys that are throwing too early. You know, the kind of the quote-unquote gator tackle, you know, going at somebody. You know, if I go to tackle you and I launch at you from this, I don't bring much power to you. So you literally got to get through a guy. So if you throw a little bit too early and you got a dynamic guy that's strong in his lower half, and he's going to break right through that stuff. So, you know, you watch the film and you critique it to him, it's all technical. There's not a kid out in the field that can't do that. It's like, you know, if a guy's so much better of an athlete or so much stronger, and you're like kidding yourself, like it doesn't matter what this kid does, he's not going to be able to. It's not that. It's getting through, you know, a near hip, not running in front of a guy. You know, as you contact, running your feet instead of launching yourself, because you don't get any power that way. So you put the film on, and the majority of these guys, they'll tell you. I mean, this is not, you know, it's not like this is the first day we're teaching tackle. I mean, it's like you come into spring ball, you do it all the time. You come into fall camp, you go through it, but then when it's live bullets and you're going against some good guys, it better be exact, and that's what we weren't. We weren't exact.
Yesterday, Joe Osai said that the defense, it's a challenge for him, but it's a challenge that he wants to take on. But what are some of the things that he's able to do that other players may not be able to do?
Well, make plays. I think that's probably the biggest thing. The expectation for him is to make the plays he should, and then make 4 or 5 that are like unique. And I think that's the one thing that can spark a defense is the big time guys. Like Roach is another guy, that does stuff that's special. That that play actually could have been a big play, but he made an exceptional effort play or whatever it may be. So, and then Joe to me is a hard worker. Joe's a worker. Joe does everything the right way. Joe's a great practice player. He does that. So I think when you're really good players, or your best practice players, that are your best kids, that are seen and respected by everybody, that sure as heck helps.
For him, he's a guy basically weak side defensive end his whole time in high school. What has he done to show that he can be used basically all over the field?
Yeah,
instead of just rushing?
because he's smart. I mean, to me, that's probably the biggest thing is like it's a fundamental in technique, and you say you go here and you go here, and some guys get that and some guys don't. But the one thing that Joe is like after this practice is over, after he goes in the ice tubs and after he eats and does this, he'll go downstairs and get better at his craft. And that's the stuff you look for in recruiting. You say, how prideful is this guy? Because those are the guys that end up being exceptional. If a guy doesn't care, if a guy's putting in minimal work and we're just getting him for the time that we get him, then he's not going to develop in that manner. And Joe's never been that way. Joe's always like, give me more, I can do it, show me what to do, and he's always eager that way.
Todd, when things aren't going well, how do you make sure your guys maintain a level of confidence so that way you can come out of it and that the confidence and the belief part of it?
Yeah, I think to me it's always been when we've gotten in these spots is to put your hands up and figuratively fight, and to work harder. That to me is always, but you have to go back to the roots of what you do, whether it is, hey, listen, we're going to attack the field, we're going to swarm to the football, we're going to play fundamental and technique. So that stuff is like universal. That's the number one thing that you go back to, because that's normally when things start to break down, is when that stuff's not good. So you go back into it, and like the biggest thing I'll continue to say is fight, man. Stuff gets really, really hard when there's whatever it may be, outside noise, you name it. There's only one thing to do, and that's to work harder. So, and I think our kids, is in some of the spots where relatively young, but that's in our program, that's what it's all about. So we talked a whole bunch about like how do we dig ourselves out and just go back to what we know. And what we know is how to do things the right way and scratch and claw and fight.
What can you do to get this D-line some help?
Well, I just think, to me, there is some stuff schematically that we can do. That game versus OU, a little bit difficult because of the amount of kind of the fly motion stuff that they were doing, which made it a little bit harder to do, to be able to pressure that stuff, right, and to get after the quarterback.
It forces you guys to have to move with them.
Yeah, that's a part of it. And then if somebody hits the wrong gap and, CD gets the ball over the top, or Jalen takes the ball and somebody doesn't fit up, it's very similar playing like triple option where, right, it's hit or miss and from that standpoint. We tried. I talked about the third down stuff. We came after them on third down, and I think we got some pressure. They tried to throw some quick game and screen stuff. Yeah. But sure, we can. We've addressed it. I wasn't necessarily fired up about some of the rush lane stuff that we had and Jalen's escapability. We knew he would be able to do that, but I think there's some of the things that we could have helped too. So it's a little bit of scheme, and it's a little bit of us doing a better job of containing quarterbacks too.
For 2 straight games, you guys haven't had a sack. When you look at the film, do you feel like you guys are getting pressure? Maybe it's not showing up in the sack total, or would you like to be able to take?
Yeah, I think we are. I think a lot of the times with us personally and the guys that we've been playing is like if they get close, they throw the ball up because, in their opinion right now, probably look at us in some of the spots in the back end that maybe we can win the 50-50 ball. And sometimes when you get into, if Chris Boyd's back there and you throw up a ball a little bit earlier, you might think that it may get picked. So I haven't been disappointed. I thought that the 2 corners, they did a decent job of running with guys where when we watched the film going into the game, we were like watching those guys, Rambo running by guys and CD running by guys, and I didn't see that. We cut him loose one time, but that was just a mental error. But we did get Jalen to throw the football a couple times faster than probably wanted to. So to me, that's, you know, if we don't get there, but we cause a bad throw, I'm good with that too.
Is there a point where you would be concerned with the lack of sacks?
Yeah, I mean, to me, the concern would be if, like, we get the third down and the guy's patting the ball back there and he has all day to throw the football and we're getting beat with balls thrown because there is no pressure, that I would be concerned about that. Sometimes on first and second down, unless you're just willing to just, hey, start whipping stuff left and right, you know, it depends on the team. You know, you can get away with it sometimes, but sometimes you can give up explosives like left and right. So sometimes you kind of pick your poison. So we did that a little bit during the game versus Oklahoma, but it's like, once again, just goes back to, you know, what are you willing to sacrifice? What are you trying to get accomplished based on that opponent?
Todd, I would imagine DeMarvion, with the injuries you've had at safety,
Yeah.
he's probably got to play a bigger role. What do you
Yeah.
feel like he's ready to take on?
Well, he should be ready to take it all on, to be honest with you. That's our expectation. You know, he's shown, like, when he's been healthy, he's shown some really good playmaking abilities, very long. He can rush the quarterback. You know, he was on the Cowboy package last week. We didn't play him full time, but he's going to have an expanded role, and we're expecting a lot of good things from him.
Time for two last ones?
Coach, do you remember, I guess, like the conversation back in the offseason where you guys ended up transitioning Deshaun Jameson back over from receiver to defensive back? Like,
Yeah.
what convinced you that he could handle the role?
Well, his playmaking ability and his feet. That was probably the two things that I thought, like, hey, this guy should be a good corner. I mean, I watch him run routes. We watch how, you know, quick he is. So we put him out the very first day, and we weren't really expecting much. You know, it was like anytime you move a guy over, there's some growing pains. You see a play here, and then 3 plays that aren't great, and then a play here. But when we first saw him do one-on-ones, we were like, oh my goodness, I think we got something here. And then it just became a confidence. You know, the one thing that's different on offense and defense, if you drop a ball, you can always scratch it off. I'm going to get another shot at the ball. But you get beat on a throw at corner, that can mess with you a little bit. So he's done a really good job. He started off in the spring hot, went into fall camp. He was okay. Lost his confidence a little bit. First couple of weeks, kind of okay. And then all of a sudden we gave him the green light versus, West Virginia, and he picked up a couple balls, and then he's been great ever since. So, once again, another younger guy that we're expecting to continue to get better.
Going off what
Last one?
Jeff just said, kind of the same thing about what he asked about DeMarvion, but with Tyler. What are
Yeah.
you expecting from him? That's why he was on the 2 deep this
Yeah,
week.
very similar. Except DeMarvion has the experience. Tyler doesn't. So Craig has been very patient with him. He's got tremendous range. He's faster than DeMarvion. He's just as long as DeMarvion. He's got really good ball skills. So another guy that's going to get a more of an expanded role, with some of the injuries we had.
When Tom talks about how the sacks are on everybody, okay, I get that. But when you break it down and we go through the list, I mean, how do you prioritize it? I mean, these are on the line, these are on Sam, these are on the receivers, or how do you look at
No,
all
I mean,
of
it's
them as a
just,
whole?
it's hard to explain, right? I mean, it's a combination of things, right?
Mhm.
Meaning, we could have held the ball too long, right? Because the quarterback might have not read the coverage right, or whatever. It could have been a busted route. We could have, the back missed a protection call or whatever. And I mean, there's a variety of things. Some of it's communication,
Mhm.
right? You get in the big games, and sometimes you think you see things but you don't. I mean, it's not there, right? I mean, it's just a variety of things. It's kind of hard to put a spot and say we have to get better at this,
Right.
right? Because it's a variety. Like I said, I mean, we got to get better at. Sam's got to get rid of the ball faster, or we got to handle the twist game better, or the back didn't hear the call and he's got to pick up his blitz guy better. And I mean, like, all of those type of things that each time it was like something different, right? So sometimes it was just a guy got beat, like, so, I mean, that's just, it's addressed, we see it, we talk about it as a unit, that everybody has a part in the offense, not just pass protection, but everything. Same thing, right? Everybody's got to do their job, and we have to execute better than we did in order for us to have success.
Which uncharacteristic drops by a lot of your receivers. Can you pinpoint maybe what happened?
No, I just think that I think most of the time our guys are going to make that play. That's all, and they didn't. And some of them were tough catches, and we didn't win the 50-50 balls like we normally have in the past, especially in that game last year. Last couple of times we played those guys on the 50-50 balls, we won them. We didn't this time.
Coach, in a couple of these big games, your offense hasn't really gotten going into the second half. What do you credit the slow starts to?
Yeah, it's a good question. We've talked about that a little bit. I don't know if it's something that the guys are waiting for somebody to make a play, and then all of a sudden it's like, hey, let's go, or I'm not sure why that's happened. It's something we addressed that I think early in the first 3-4 games. I think we scored on the first possession every time we had the ball, and then all of a sudden we hadn't. And we've got to do a better job, doing our job, number one. Number two, make a play. Like, somebody's got to make a play instead of waiting for somebody to make a play to be like, equated it like jumping in a swimming pool. Nobody wants to jump in, but once somebody gets in, like, oh, okay, we're good. Let's all jump in now, right? No, like, somebody's got to go first. And it's the same thing with making a play. Somebody's got to make a play, and then the spark kind of gets going, the confidence, the mojo, and then all of a sudden you kind of start rolling. And last couple games, we haven't had that early.
Tim, kind of going back to Honor's question, how tough is it? I know Oklahoma's being a little handsy, and not to criticize anything about the officiating, but how do you talk your guys through that just to play through when the officials are going to let you play a little bit and defensive backs are going to be maybe a little more handsy than normal?
Yeah, you just technique. You gotta go back to your training, right? Which is what I got to do. Great technique. I got to keep focused on my task and what I need to do. So if you lose focus, right, those are some issues. Right? Maybe did we drop a ball, or why did we hold the ball too long, or why? I know maybe we're too deep or too short, or we dropped. I know, because why? Maybe I'm worried about that. And so being focused. Same with Sam, right? Maybe he gets sacked one time if he starts worrying about the pass rush, right? That's another no-no as far as a quarterback goes. You can't do those types of things. And so it's confidence, it's focus, it's getting back to your mechanics, your technique, your timing, things like that. And unfortunately, with young kids, sometimes that gets away, and you got to wheel them back in. Part of it's sitting down in front of them at halftime. I'm in the booth, you're trying to talk to them, and I know, and then you look them in the eye at halftime and say, settle down, we're good, like, calm down, we're good. Here's what we got to do to fix ourselves. Let's go back to work. Here's what your job is. Here's what we see. Here's how we fix it. They all take a deep breath, and we go out, and we regroup, and then all of a sudden things kind of start to click, and sometimes it takes that. Sometimes it's like walking out to the pitcher's mound and slowing down. We can't do that all the time. You can't just, hey, let me talk to the quarterback, walk out in the middle of the field and talk to him. We can't do that. So, or our team, right? It could be the O-line, it could be a running back, whatever it is. So it's just a part of those guys having to continue to grow in that and deal with that.
You were in a bunch of 2x2 sets, and it looks like that was something y'all haven't done before. Is that a new wrinkle y'all say for the game, or was that an opponent adjustment?
Not really. We've done some with it, but it was just part of the game plan of some things we wanted to try to do.
What's happened to Jake Smith last few weeks?
Nothing. Not really. I think it's hard when you have the leading receiver in the country playing in front of you and leading guy on third downs, and there's a lot of things about what Devin's doing right now, and do you want to take him off the field? And it's not that Jake's done anything that's deserved less playing time. It's just Devin's really playing well, and it's hard to take him off the field at times.
And there's still no way to get them both on the field at the same time.
You're trying. You've switched Devin's position at the start of the year. Jake's a freshman trying to learn to all of a sudden switch their positions during this time. You're in a learning curve all over again. And so. I think we'll take some steps backwards in doing that. Because again, I do think you need them. you know, and maybe Dev's playing a little too much, you know, I don't know. But at some point, we're going to need Jake to be able to go in there and still help us.
Shackelford had described the Kansas defense as very physical, to get off the ball really well. What
Yeah.
have you seen when you looked at it?
Yeah, I think up front, they do a really good job. I think there are 3 guys in their Okie front do a really good job. They're quick off the ball, physical, play with their hands. I like their secondary. I think their safeties are big time. They hit. They do a really good job. They're much improved. They got a very solid plan. And I think they're doing it the right way. They've got a system. They're teaching their system, and you know, as they recruit to their system, you know, there might be some growing pains here and there, but I think they're doing it the right way.
What does Roshan need to do better?
I think, you know, one of the things we've talked to him about in Ostanda, just kind of finishing runs a little bit. I think he's done a good job of getting to the second level, but it's, you know, if there's 2 guys, if there's 1 guy, how do I attack that guy or make that guy miss?
This is a guy who, you know, for much of the spring and I guess start fall camp was wearing a black jersey.
Oh, no doubt.
How has he handled the pass protection and adjusting to having to hit people?
I think he's not afraid to pass protect. Adjustments at times and or unique protection calls throw him for a loop at times.
I know that. Oh, sorry.
But I'm saying, like in the game, we had to make an adjustment to something, and he struggled a little bit with it.
On Rashawn's run, his right arm basically doesn't move. He
Yeah.
kept it high and tight, and he's not, you know, a 4-3 guy, but he's not slow. But are y'all willing to maybe sacrifice a little bit of foot speed and running for him to make sure that the ball stays?
Yeah, you always got to be careful. I think what Rowe felt like, I don't think he ever felt at that point he was really in the open. I think he felt like when he came through, like he kind of bounced off a guy and started to go, and he felt like there were guys close by. And usually, most defensive coaches punch or, you know, try to strip the ball out. I think he felt like, hey, they're closing on me somewhere. I don't think he realized he might have been a little more open than he was.
Coach, last season when you had Deshaun Jameson at receiver, I guess what excited you about having him on offense and his skill set?
Yeah, I think, you know, he was quick and elusive. He's a similar style of player of like Devin and Jake, right? And last year with Devin playing as an outside guy and us not having Jake, he was a good fit in that position at that time, and he could do some of those things that we had these guys doing.
Through 6 games with Sam, what do you like about what he's doing at quarterback, and what do you feel like he still needs to progress?
You know, he's protecting the football well. I think he makes good decisions. I think he is, at times, his greatest strength, his smarts, could also be his greatest weakness, meaning like, it's this coverage, I'm throwing the ball to this guy pre-snap. And then sometimes if the coverage switches, it's like, oh, and it gets him, right? So that's one of the things. And then I think, too, just trusting our wideouts that they're going to do the job to throw on time, especially some of the younger guys. Like I think him and Colin, him and Devin, him and Brennan, I think they've got a good rapport. Sam could go back there on time, hit his foot, and the ball be out, and he knows those guys are going to be there. I think sometimes with the younger guys, inexperienced guys, he might hold it longer and wait to see where they're at. Because when he's on time and he throws, he's really accurate. I mean, he put the ball in good places last game, in tight coverage spots too. So, but I'm pleased. I really think, again, Sam will be the first one to tell you, I ride him hard. I expect and demand perfection from him. I think he wants it no other way, to be honest with you. So it's easy to do that, right? I mean, so.
The thing about kind of seeing stuff pre-snap and having to adjust, is that just, some people might hear that and say it's a bad thing, but is that just kind of natural maturation of quarterback?
Yes.
Recognizing those things?
Yes. And, you know, in defense, that, you know, last week's opponent, they weren't in a close ball game. They didn't, I mean, by halftime, they beat everybody pretty bad for the most part. So they didn't have to show a lot. I mean, and then all of a sudden, they got a couple wrinkles we hadn't seen, and it looks like one thing and it plays out to be another. And so, as a quarterback, you're going back, oh, this coverage, here's where I'm going. And then you're like, oop, it's not that coverage, And you got to make that adjustment. So, again, that's the smarts to him that's like, hey, wow, he recognized. But the negative to it is like there's a little bit of, and again, any quarterback you bring up here is going to tell you, right? They're gonna, hey, it's man coverage, I'm throwing to that guy, that's my man beater. Like the system is built that way. If it's man coverage, throw it to him, it's man. If it's cover 2, play over here. If it's cover 3, you're going over here. They have systematic offensive schemes to cover everything, because in today's game, nobody just lines up and plays what they show, but at least there's usually indicators, there's film you can watch, you study, and usually you get a chance to see everything at some point, or at least philosophically, when you face a team that, there wasn't a lot of competitive snaps for them, a whole lot. There were some things we hadn't seen.